Shark Nation Radio. All experts, all the time. News, politics, sports, and much more. Always real and never boring. Tune in and join the Shark Nation. Backlash with Adam Taxin, where people come to get in-depth analysis of trending topics. Listen to Adam break down the latest news as only he can. Enjoy callers wittingly conversing and debating with the one and only Adam Taxin. And now, the real most interesting man in the world and your host of Backlash, Adam Taxin.
Welcome to Backlash on Shark Nation Radio. Adam Taxin, of course, here. And this is going to be another interview that occupies the entire show. Didn't see it coming this way. Great opportunity in my lap. This is awesome. Pre-recorded. I've heard it already. I've done the interview. This is someone you haven't heard of who is involved with a musical group you have heard of. Her name is Jodie Rocco. And she was one of the singers in Milli Vanilli, who appeared in all the songs. If you remember, 1989, they were one of the biggest groups, not just in the U.S., everywhere in the world. They were huge. Then the frontmen were found out to be frauds who didn't sing. They were dancers, and there's a whole story behind it, and you're going to hear that right now.
Well, I said I'm making an effort to do things that are not only political on this show, not only current events, and this would certainly be one of those times. I'm not entirely sure how this evolved, but I have with me one of the backup singers and key parts of Milli Vanilli, Jodie Rocco, who I guess we have a mutual friend, and there's a story that has to get out that people will enjoy hearing. I talked to her a little bit before, and plenty, may take a while to get through this story, and I actually sang a Milli Vanilli song, Girl, You Know It's True, at karaoke just 2 weeks ago, so the timing's perfect. But anyhow, Jodie.
That's great.
Yeah, and the crowd likes it. As I said to you before, it's so perfect with Girl, You Know It's True. I've never tried the other ones. That you have that kind of awkward, you really mean a lot to me at the beginning, and then it has the dramatic dun, dun, there where you can sort of hand it up. It's such a good karaoke song that people forget.
It's a song for everyone. Everyone can sing parts of it, so it's always good.
Oh, and it's also sort of like, it's sort of half singing, half rap also, because like even if you're not Pavarotti, it works pretty well. That one, I mean, Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You, you got to have a little bit more of a singing voice for, but that one.
But most of the songs, I'd like to say that we kind of made rap very commercial and accessible, because it did mix the whole having the female vocals in the background and doing the duets. Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You was actually a duet, and having the boys, or having John Davis actually doing the rap part, because he did rap and Brad did sing, in the chorus parts and some parts. So it did bring rap into a commercial light, which I thought was.
That was the time in the late 80s. It had been a couple years since Walk This Way. And then with that song, you're like, wait, is this a rap song or is this a song, or is it sort of in between? And that was the time where you weren't sure what things were. Rap was really becoming mainstream. Anyhow, I hope the audience on that one, let's take this from the beginning. Like, tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and how this whole project developed.
Well, obviously my name is Jodie Rocco. I'm a twin. My twin sister and I were the female vocals on the first and second releases of the Milli Vanilli albums. I guess we used to call them albums. They're not albums anymore. They're CDs. But it started in Germany. I lived in Germany 14 years, and I was already a well-known singer in Germany and parts of Europe, because I had done records. I write music. I sing. I don't play an instrument, but I performed quite a bit. And my sister knew Frank Farian. Frank Farian is was the producer of Milli Vanilli. It was his creation, his idea. And just to quell everybody who thinks they know where the name came from, this is where the name came from. His girlfriend, Ingrid Seget, who was also part of part of Milli Vanilli, I guess, the whole, the legal part of Milli Vanilli. She also ran the office in the recording studio. Frank had one of the first digital recording studios in Europe, and that's where we recorded this. But her nickname was Millie, and he used to call her Milli Vanilli.
Oh, so it had nothing to do with like a play on Scritti Politti, who I think was around then or a little bit before, because I always thought of the two the same way. Not that the music was similar, but
it was because of Ingrid. I don't know where you get Millie from Ingrid, but that was where the name of the group came from. And
wait, what were you doing in Germany, by the way? Trying to make a musical career? Because you were just went over there because.
No, my father was in the military. He retired in 1979, and I stayed in Germany. I was 18, and I stayed in Germany. I had my first record contract when I was 17. That's why I stayed.
Got it.
And I actually recorded my first record. You may remember who Ian Anderson is, but
from
Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
He did the arrangement of my A and B side of my first single that I ever recorded, Heart of Mine and Fairweather Woman, but he did the orchestral arrangements for both of them, and just a brilliant musician. I didn't get to meet him. He just worked on my project with Jeff Harrison. Jeff Harrison was also the co-creator of Modern Talking in Germany, which was probably one of the biggest acts ever in that part of the world. They sold millions and millions and millions of records in the 80s and 90s. And, but anyway, so I started singing in Germany, and that's where I stayed after my father retired, came back to the States, and I stayed there.
Let me give a little background. First of all, I can't remember what it was I was going to say, but with Germany, that's where Donna Summer was launched. She became big there working with a guy named Giorgio Moroder, who had a huge number of hits and still is going strong today, though I don't think he has as many hits. And Germany, Frank Farian is the guy behind Boney M, dance music group that was bigger in Europe than over here. I don't know. I mean, it's a little before my time.
It was bigger in that side of the world. Keep in mind, Europe is minuscule. You also have to remember, too, that Germany is the second largest record market in the world, even today. Yes. Behind the U.S. is Germany, and then Japan, and then the U.K. So even back then, in 79, 80, 81, it was the second largest record market in the world.
Boney M has a song. Their big one here, I guess, was By the Rivers of Babylon. Again, I was only, pretty young in the 70s. But Rasputin, which is definitely a cult favorite and is the funniest video, is by Boney M. You probably know that. I mean, I know you know it, but people listening know that. They're known for that. And it kind of makes sense. It was a European sound and black singers and performers who were mostly known for dancing, who apparently weren't necessarily singing there. No,
for the most part, they probably weren't. But you have to remember that this was the norm in Europe. It was the norm.
This is all news, yeah.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people did. They would put these very attractive or model-looking people out front, especially the big groups that were like Genghis Khan. You know, they were models. These guys were runway models that they had there, except for Leslie. Leslie actually wrote a lot of the songs and did some of the singing, but for the most part, these guys didn't sing. I mean, but the music was very big, and they made a lot of money on it. A Silver Convention, Fly Robin Fly. Those people didn't sing.
Oh, really?
They're all studio musicians.
No kidding. And, the guy's moves in the Rasputin video are just a little too good. The guy's a little too multi-talented for me to believe now. Now it makes sense that he's not singing. He has all those impossible dance moves just down completely.
Well, look at the boys. Look at Milli Vanilli.
Right.
These were two boys who were professional dancers. Rob used to dance in my shows. He did, because like I said, I kind of had a pretty good popularity when I was in Germany, and I worked a lot, and I made records, and I was on TV a lot, and I worked with some, pretty big people. And he used to dance in some of my shows, some of the shows I did, especially in and around Munich. And I just remember, I never heard that he sang, never knew that he sang. He never sang. They weren't singers, they were dancers. they weren't hired to sing, they were hired to dance. So when Frank Farian puts a group together, he gets the creme de la creme from the world to be on these productions.
Mm-hmm.
So when my sister called me, he didn't even know who I was. He knew who Linda was. Mm-hmm. And Linda and Joan Faulkner were supposed to be doing the one song in the studio, or the songs in the studio for Helen Schneider. Helen Schneider was recording at the same time that, in Frank's studio, and Frank just happened to be there one day. Joan Faulkner couldn't make it. Linda called me and said, hey, you want to come up and do this? Helen Schneider was a very big Broadway type of voice, which I always really liked a lot. So I was in the studio working with her when Frank heard us.
No kidding.
And he said, hey, I have a song for you guys. You think when you take your lunch break you can come and do it? It's only like guaranteed 20 minutes. And I said, God, I hope it's not Oohs and Ahs and I Love Yous, because that's so typical, especially the German, what they call Schlager music. It's very typical to be the kind of the country music of German music. And I get in the studio, and of course, what is it? Ooh, 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 I love you. And I thought, just shoot me now, okay?
That's you who
because
says,
it was
ooh,
just
ooh, ooh, I love you.
Right. It's ooh, 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 I love you. That was Girl, You Know It's True. And that was the chorus part. Yes, exactly. So I said, oh, okay. And he's like, well, this is going to be for a new group, and it's something I'm getting together. There were no other vocal tracks. It was just a drum track. All we had to do was just follow the beat, and then Girl, You Know It's True, that part. Frank was singing that lead. That was Frank singing the lead.
Really?
On that part. Mm-hmm. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. Yeah.
Amazing stories from the studio. I had heard recently, I think listening to Sirius, some station on Sirius, that, for example, classic songs often just are randomly occurring in the studio, like Boys of Summer. Don Henley just was there at the same time Pat Benatar's people were, and he heard the Love is a Battlefield, and he said, hey, can I borrow that? No problem. And they sound exactly similar, but you never think about it. But, No,
you don't, but it's very true. It's very true. So many things happen.
Girl, it's true. Oh, sorry. You just made that too easy.
Right. Not to coin a phrase, but
right.
It is. It really is. In fact, that's how I got on a couple of really interesting, like Stevie B. I was out. I just was leaving a club. It was 1:00 in the morning. One of the girls who was singing with him, she goes, Jodie, I saw you did this thing on TV. Hey, Stevie B's in town. You want to go do some production work right now on his whatever he was recording at the time in 1980 or 81 or 82, whenever that was. That's how this stuff happened. It literally does happen this way. Mm-hmm.
No kidding. Yeah,
it's exciting, actually.
Yeah, it's like Prince not being on We Are the World. He just decided that day, no, I don't want to be with those MFs tonight.
Well, sadly, you make those bad decisions. I mean, if I would have said, nah, I'm not doing Oohs and Ahs and I Love Yous, he's a major German producer, I don't want to be associated with him, it would have been ridiculous. So for that 20 minutes, which I earned 64 marks, which was about $28 at the time, it propelled me into a whole different world of music.
And so what happened after that?
Well, the boys hadn't even been found for that, actually. They weren't even, he just put it together. Once it was done, Charles Shaw did the rap. So he had hired Charles Shaw to be this Milli Vanilli voice, and then he saw the two boys dancing while out at P1, which is the P1 in Munich, which is owned by the Michael Kafer, who's part of the Kafer family, big gastronomically influenced family in Germany and Munich. And he saw them dancing. And he said, hey, I got a project for you guys. Why don't you come around and blah, blah, blah. So this is how this started.
Wait, they must have been like, what?
Well, keep in mind, there was no internet at the time. There was these guys were living in a one-room apartment with a naked light bulb. Somebody's going to say to you, hey, I'm going to offer you, this or that. I don't know the exact determination of what the contractual arrangement was, but I can guarantee you it was better than a naked light bulb in a one-bedroom apartment in Munich.
Sure. And they knew each other before that? So they knew each other?
They knew each other before that, yes. They knew each other.
Went around and looked similarly to each other and hung out, like despite looking pretty much.
Yes, I was out quite a few times with Rob, long before Milli Vanilli, at P1, because I knew Michael Kafer really well, and I would go there and I would, check out what's going on, who's going to be, playing. DJs were really big at the time, much bigger than they were here. I mean, we called them discotheques back in the day, but DJs were really popular. I mean, they were considered, gods in Europe
like in Vegas right now.
Like in Vegas. Well, yes, right now, but not like 5 years ago, 3, 4, like that. I think it's kind of fading here in Vegas. And I was part of nightclubs.com long before these DJs even came here for 8 years. I had a lot to do with the nightlife industry here in Vegas. So I can tell you that it was pretty big. It was pretty big.
I mean, I don't really do that much, but you go see the billboards, and there's so many of just DJs, the way it probably once was for Sammy Davis Jr. or something.
Exactly, but these clubs are like $150 million to build. They paid the DJs $1 million, for 5 shows.
No kidding.
Ask one of the main stars what they're getting for a show.
All right.
Not $1 million, I can tell you that.
It's
if they come to a club, it's a very good deal.
All right. So you were saying, so they found them. They were living in a one-room apartment with a light bulb, and so it was an
being
offer they couldn't
facetious,
refuse.
of course. They didn't have a flat of rooms that were, 6 rooms living on Prince Regentenstrasse, the main street, or Leopoldstrasse, or in Schwabing, with the doorman. So no, they were struggling artists, as most of us were back in the day. We did what we had to do.
Yep. And so they were like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And
so Frank gets them, and they have this song, and it becomes very popular in Germany. It just starts getting played. It gets picked up by the radio. They end up actually, of course, there's no picture of anybody. Keep that in mind. They haven't seen anybody or done anything yet. So when it gets that big, then he's got the boys. Now they're performing that song only. It hadn't even hit the States. It didn't even come to the United States for another 7 or 8 months. And the only way it could have come to the United States is if there was more than one song. You had to have at least, 4 to 6 songs before that could even happen. So we ended up back in the studio in March of the next year and did the album. And by December, when my sister and I came home for Christmas of the next year in '89, it was playing on the radio already. We got off the plane, and my parents picked us up, and we were they had to stop the car. We were screaming so loud. It's like, that's us. Listen, that's the song we did in Germany, and blah, 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 and it was big, and nobody ever heard of Milli Vanilli, and now all of a sudden they're playing it on the radio.
And were you surprised by how big it was? I mean, not surprised.
Oh, shocked. Well, no, we were surprised, but then again, keep in mind, we already knew what the other 24 songs were that were being considered for the album. We knew it was we knew that if it hit the States, it was going to be very big. Very big. Yeah, because Clive Davis and Arista Records, they don't take those chances.
It was Clive Davis.
They're not going to put millions of dollars behind something that they don't think is going to work.
And he was doing Whitney Houston at the time. He was handling her and some pretty big artists who had a lot of big hits.
Exactly.
Okay, so there was no doubt about it.
There was no doubt about it. And there was also no doubt about it that he didn't know what was going on.
Oh, he didn't know. He had no. So what did he think?
No. There's no doubt about it that let me reword that. He knew what was going on. It would have been very, very skeptical, and I would not believe it for a moment if he didn't know.
Right. I mean, like, he would have met them and probably recognized whether the voices sounded at all.
There's pictures from Getty Images with him and the boys.
And so, of course, he knew. And it was just about promoting it at that
Well,
point.
during the second album, which most people don't know this, I'm going to give you a little tidbit of information here. Richard Sweareth, who was Clive Davis's right-hand man, he came to Germany for the second album, and he was in the studio. And I was his, I guess, confidant at that time while we were doing this second album because Frank fell ill, and he ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks while we were recording. So a lot of the recordings that we did, especially the slow numbers, Frank was not in the studio. And we apparently did a pretty good job because when he came back, he really didn't change much. And I know he was very grateful for that. But Richard was there, and he knew at that time, he knew for a fact that the boys didn't sing.
So take me through, the 4 huge hits that they had, and like what was going on behind the scenes through then, and how it sort of fell apart. Which sounds like it was Fab and Rob's egos in large part, or getting delusional or something.
It was more fear. The thing you fear the most is usually the thing that happens to you the fastest. Mm-hmm. So for them, it was the fear that people would find out that they weren't singing. Right. And Frank was kind of dragging his feet to come forward and tell the people of the world that the boys actually didn't sing, and these are the real singers. In fact, I had a meeting with the boys here with their manager, Karsten Hine. It was during the Buster Douglas fight, and Tone Loc was their bodyguard, and it was at the Mirage. And I had a meeting. He was their bodyguard at that time. This guy was huge and the nicest guy. So I went to the hotel, and I had a meeting with them, and I was married at the time. My husband at the time went with me, and it was the manager, Karsten Hine, the 2 boys. There was 2 other people in the room. I don't remember who they were. I think Angelo is the name of one of them, but I don't remember. And Tone Loc, me and the boys, my ex-husband and I, and we talked about they were going to go live without Frank knowing at the Rio Festival in January. This was in October of the year before, and in January of the next year, they were going to go to Rio for that huge music festival that they have every year, where 2 billion people watch it. And they asked me and my sister and the 2, Brad Howell and Johnny Davis, to go with them to perform live as one group. And I'm like, sign me up. I'm so ready to be a part of this. And they said, yeah, we're getting together. We're going to go to L.A. and we're going to do the video for the first single off the second album. Jodie, we want you to be there. I'm like, yes. The production crew called me. They fitted me for costumes. I get to L.A. I'm working. There's 3 black girls going to be in the video. I'm the one who sang all the vocals with my sister. My sister was going to fly over. I'm in the studio. Phone call comes in. Does anybody speak German? And I said, well, I do. I speak read and write fluent German. So I grab the phone, and it's Frank's girlfriend, Ingrid. She says, what are you doing there? I said, well, the boys invited me to be a part of the video. She says, well, you don't belong there. You have to leave. I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to leave. She said, well, you have to go. I'm telling you right now, you need to leave, go back to Vegas, because this was in L.A. Frank called my sister and said, if your sister doesn't leave L.A., I'm going to blackball you. You'll never work again in Germany. Now, keep in mind, no cell phones, there was no internet, there was nothing. So I'm in L.A. with only contact with my parents. So my sister calls my parents call me. I call my sister from the hotel, and she's crying. So I said, okay, I get back to Vegas, and I called CBS. I called CBS News, and I said, hi, my name is Jodie Rocco. I have a story for you.
Wow.
And that's how I broke that story.
I thought it was that the thing broke and they were caught off guard.
The tape broke at Bristol Park, amusement park in Connecticut, but that's not what broke the story.
No kidding.
Nope.
But why would they do
that? Not.
I mean, why would they? And how did they plan on singing at this thing, or were they going to have they were going to lip sync?
Well, they were lip syncing at the festival. It was not live. You can only really get away with that so often. They were the first group, I want to say, ever at the Grammys to lip sync a song.
No kidding. Now it's probably happened.
I don't think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking they're either the first group that ever did that, or one of a minute amount of groups that actually lip synced at a Grammy Awards show.
Okay, so
and it was one of the best performances.
Oh, I'm sure, if they didn't have to worry about
it was a phenomenal performance.
Addicted to Backlash? Not yet? Catch Adam Taxin, the host of Backlash, Monday through Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m. for new episodes, as well as Backlash Rewind on Fridays, 6 to 7 p.m. for an action-packed recap of what was trending during the week. You can listen live by going to www.sharknationradio.com, or you can listen on demand by going to SoundCloud and typing in Shark Nation Radio, Twitter by typing in Shark Nation Radio, or YouTube by typing in, you guessed it, Shark Nation Radio. What is Backlash all about? We feature incredible guests, many of whom you know, and some that you will want to know. We discuss trending topics, especially the ones that the biased media might not want to cover. We bring you experts and we keep it fun. Tune into Backlash on your computer or your smartphone.
This is when they got Best New Artist, which got revoked.
Well, let me tell you about that revoked. You want to hear something very, very new that nobody knows?
Yeah.
This is news. One of my bucket list items in my life, I will be 58 next week. When I was 30 or close to 33, we did this, okay? I won a Grammy that I wasn't even allowed to touch. It's in a vault somewhere. I wasn't even allowed to be at the Grammy Awards ceremony because Frank was afraid somebody might ask me a question, or my sister. So I sat at home while others mimed my voice. So I said, I'm going to ask the NARAS, the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences, to give me back my Grammy. So I wrote him a letter. And I got a response back. And the response is so ridiculous that they couldn't even tell me why.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty frustrating because you actually sang. Yeah. It's not like the MTV Video Music Awards or something where the video component is important. I mean, the video is irrelevant, theoretically.
Well, not only that, this was for artistic musical talent. They gave the award to Milli Vanilli, not to Robin Fab.
Right.
It was an award for Milli Vanilli. And although I understand, yes, I understand that there was the deception and all that, but that had nothing to do with me. Nothing whatsoever to do with me.
Right. It would have been a
good
song no matter what. People like listening to the song in the car. Yeah.
And we won this award based on musical achievements, not because of Robin Fab. So according to the senior vice president of awards, in his letter to me 3 days ago, he said that I'm 36 years too late. So I'm thinking, well, that's my question. I'm thinking, considering we didn't even record the song but 30 years ago, it didn't even come out on the market 29 years ago, and then, 28 years ago, we won a Grammy. So how does that equate to 36 years? So I'm confused. And he states in his 2 paragraphs that he writes to me that even though he wasn't at the Grammy Foundation or the Grammy Awards at that time, he kind of, the story was reminiscent of something he had heard. What does that mean?
I don't know, unless it has something to do with Boney M.
I'm like, who? Are you sure this guy's writing this letter? He allowed this letter to go out? Seriously?
Right.
So I've written another letter that went out, and now I'm going to see exactly what he has to say, because I originally wrote Neil Portnow, who's the CEO and president of the Grammys, because I think it would be wonderful if they acknowledged who this phenomenal talent was, finally.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there.
Well, I think that they need to, either they have to acknowledge it. If they don't want to give us the Grammy back, that's fine, but at least acknowledge that that the boys had nothing to do with the music. The music is what
why would
and
they
why.
Why would they not acknowledge it? I mean, everyone knows it's a lie.
Well, they, according to
especially
him, and I can quote you from
it. No one ever claimed they did the female voices on there.
Well, not only that, our voices are on there more than the boys. We're on probably 75% of all the recordings. Much more than the boys ever were.
What do you mean? Oh, I mean,
our voices.
Yeah, because they weren't on at all.
Well, even Brad and John, they took turns singing. We didn't. We were on everything. Some of the songs were on, we sound like instruments. Yeah. So it's like, we were in the studio a lot longer. We did a lot more work than anybody on that record.
Oh, right, because it's not like they were, one was singing the melody and one was singing the harmony. It was just one or the other, right? For most
Right,
of the songs.
exactly. And sometimes one was not even on one of the songs. And then songs like Dance with the Devil, they're nowhere around. It's just my sister and I.
Okay. The lesser known songs, like not the four.
Well, they're B-side. They're on the albums, right? Exactly.
Got it.
And according to Mr. Frymuth is his name, he says, while he can empathize with my particular point of view, I don't believe that the fact that there were actual real people who sang outweighs the deceit that caused the award to be withdrawn. That's not good enough for me.
Right.
He says there are resolutions in place, but he didn't tell me what they were.
Wait,
and then he says some years ago, the Board of Trustees made some sort of rule or regulation. It has nothing to do with me. What's that have to do with me and Milli Vanilli 30 years ago? That's something now. You need to go back. No one ever had this problem at the Grammys. We're the only ones. It's not like there's 55 people looking to get their awards back. There's
Jodie,
one.
let me ask you a dumb question. Now, you said that the song was a huge hit in the U.S., as other ones were subsequently, but it was a big hit all over the world. Unlike a lot of huge songs in the U.S., they're not necessarily big hits everywhere. But it was a big hit in Germany before you had even hired Rob and Fab, right?
It was, yes.
So
once it gained popularity and got on TV and got on radio, then there had to be a group.
So, but it was already a huge hit in other countries before anyone had ever seen them or you had even hired them. So, I mean, I guess that makes the Grammy.
It was a huge hit. It was a huge hit in Germany.
Got it. Before they had even been hired. Yet
before
the
they had,
didn't take that into account.
No, none of that. None of that happened for another 8 months or more. This was in October of when the single came out or September when it came out in Germany. We didn't even go in the studio and start doing all the other, we went in the studio months later to put the rest of the songs together so that it could be released in the States.
Got it.
It was huge in South America. It was huge in Russia. We have so many fans in South America and the Eastern Bloc countries who said if it wasn't for some of the music from Milli Vanilli, they don't know how they would have gotten through the war. And it's just some of the stuff that you read is just, it's heartbreaking, some of the things that you read from a song like Girl, You Know It's True,
There aren't that many songs that are huge international hits and in the U.S. I mean, I'm thinking about them like from the 80s, what would have been like Take On Me by A-ha, or maybe Self-Control by Laura Branigan or Gloria. But, I mean, it's usually, England and America and then the continent, right?
Well, the crossover hits, I mean, take Jennifer Rush. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but Jennifer Rush did a song called Power of Love. Power of Love was so huge. It sold 80,000 copies a day in England.
Really?
Day after day after day after day. It was the highest selling song ever. I think just until recently was it the highest selling song on a daily level ever in the UK. It didn't even break the American charts. It didn't even get in. I never heard it here on the radio. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I mean, I know the songs from the 80s pretty well. I mean, I vaguely remember that one, but why is that the tastes aren't that different, are they?
I don't think it has anything to do with taste. I think it has to do with the money behind you. When you have BMG, which is Bertelmann's group, when you have Hansa Records in Germany, a huge conglomerate, together with Arista Records and Clive Davis, and Coca-Cola sponsoring and giving you money to get all the tracks together, that's money. You got bank behind you. I mean, as I was telling you before, think about it. We sold 44 million records in a year and a half. That's a lot of records.
But
I got a couple of platinum records that were allowed to be smuggled out of Arista Records with my name on them. For 7 million singles of Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You sold in 1990. Forget about what was sold after we gave the Grammy back, long before the scandal hit. I mean, that's just in the U.S. So you have to really put this into some sort of perception.
How many did it
when
sell?
You think about record selling. And there was no Apple iMusic,
Right.
iPod, none of that stuff. None of that stuff.
Wow, it's quite a story. You weren't kidding. So, how did things really fall apart? I mean, what besides the fact that you said that to CBS, like what went wrong with the glitch at
Well,
the
the boys
concert?
did have attitude. You're right.
Uh-huh.
You were right. You were correct.
Well, you
before.
told me
The boys
that.
did. Well, they did have attitude, but here's the problem. They had
Uh-huh.
attitude with no backup. If I'm going to have attitude, don't let your mouth write a check your ass can't cash.
Right.
So if you you're going out there and saying, well, I'm bigger than Bob Dylan ever was, yeah, you've got a problem. Or I'm bigger than the Beatles, we're bigger than Elvis Presley. Yeah, that's going to be an issue. Okay?
Right.
The last thing I would ever want to...
Terrence Trent D'Arby did that, and he could sing.
There's a difference. Actually, I knew Terry very well.
Uh-huh.
Very, very well. He and I played the same clubs in Munich.
Yeah.
What a nice guy. Very shy, very laid back, very low-key.
Yeah.
Surprising that came out of his mouth.
I think it's probably
Very
publicity.
surprising.
He's from right near here in Florida, by the way. I think he's from Deland.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't really have anything to do with his former life. You know this.
I think I knew that.
He changed his name and everything. You can't even, and if you call him by that, he will block and delete you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Cat Stevens situation type thing.
Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was pretty weird. But anyway, getting back to the boys. Yeah, when you get to that point, and you know for a fact that you did not sing a lick, why would you even make these statements? And it's not like somebody took it out of context. Mm-hmm. He actually did it in an interview where somebody was recording it. And they both sat there straight-faced. While they said it, we're bigger than the Beatles. I know. It was like, oh my God, if my manager was sitting next to me, somebody should have been kicking somebody or saying, give me the tape. This is not we don't give you permission to use that part or blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
No, they're like, yeah, we're better than, bigger and better and more popular and we've sold more records than. No, you didn't do anything. I got news for you. You didn't do anything. Okay. You got out there and you danced. Yes, you did.
Did you know you can catch Backlash clips on YouTube? Why would you want to watch Backlash on YouTube? Because we know that you want control over your content and what narratives you're fed. Cable news is expensive, and often it leaves you to choose between a boring conservative on one channel or an unhinged Rachel Maddow on another. Watch our clips on YouTube as Adam Taxin talks with the likes of Ben Shapiro, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Ron DeSantis, Brooke Goldstein, and others that you will love. Adam is a conservative, and he keeps it real. Tune into our YouTube channel and enjoy commentary that is conservative and intellectually stimulating. Just go to YouTube and type in Shark Nation Radio in the search box. Once you're on our channel, you have free access to all of the great conversations Adam has had with people you will definitely want to hear from. You can also follow us on SoundCloud and Twitter by searching for Shark Nation Radio.
Were they? I mean, they were good dancers. I'll give them that. But were they just stupid to do that?
They were phenomenal. Well, they got too big for their britches. A lot of that had to do with, I don't know if you're aware that Rob was in rehab quite a few times. He was in rehab.
And Rob passed
7 or
away
8
for
times.
drug. So it should have been
He
a drug.
passed away. Let me clear this situation up. He inadvertently drank while he was in rehab. He was taking rehab medication.
Oh.
So he inadvertently drank with that, whatever he was taking, and that whole cocktail mix there was deadly. Because Frank was helping him out. He was in a hotel in Frankfurt. Frank was going to help him and Fabrice so that they could, record something new. They were going to go back in the studio. He was trying to get his life together. And that he did not intentionally commit suicide. That was not the intent.
He must, and that must have been pretty kind of devastating. I mean, you had, I guess, a rocky relationship, but pretty sad.
It was very sad. I got along with Rob very well. He told my husband at the time, if you guys ever get divorced, she's mine. I'm going to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say this all the time. We really had it was a platonic relationship, but it was a long relationship. We weren't best friends, but he understood me and I understood him. And nobody ever said a word about anything.
Was he
like
depressed about the whole situation? Was he?
Well, I can only imagine. I mean, I can only assume.
I don't know. I mean, it was kind of a good
that
ride,
he
but he really wasn't a singer.
I'm sure he was. To keep a secret like that, every time you walked out on stage or you went in front of a microphone, or you talk to somebody, if you said to me, so sing to me how that part went in Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You, giving all the love I feel for you, I can imitate perfectly exactly what was on the record. They couldn't. So how are you going to do that?
They couldn't even pretend it. They couldn't even do it in a not and say we've been smoking too much, our voices are off, with laryngitis. Could they sing at all? Like, would it be worse than hearing me and do a mediocre job of it at karaoke, which I could send you, by the way, after this?
What? Well, I'm not going to get into any kind of, bashing, but, don't quit your day job if you know your night job is making you lots of money and it's dancing. So I would say, I don't repair roofs. I'm a singer. So if you want me to repair roofs so that people will come and, ask me to repair their roof because, I can sell videos and I can do fix-it videos and all that, but you don't want me to repair your roof because I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I were them, I'd say, like, you got us. We're
humble
dancers,
pie
should
have been what they were eating.
Yeah, at a certain
humble
point.
Pie.
I mean,
yeah, they should have gone along. Frank, Frank is just as guilty. Don't get me wrong. Frank, led them by the nose. They had a beautiful mansion in L.A. They drove Ferraris. Yeah. They had wonderful little, solid gold Rolexes with diamond bezels. They came to Vegas. We went with the limousine, which Frank paid for. The credit cards were all in his name. He paid for everything. We went shopping. We went to Nordstrom. We went to the Shark Club. We went over there. Frank paid for everything. The boys, I'd be shocked if they got royalties. I know that they were paid, but I'd be shocked if they got royalties.
It's just
so.
I
mean, you got to pick and
leave a good thing alone. Wait for the next album. I don't get it.
Well, exactly. So the next album comes out. So Frank, to add fuel to the bonfire, it wasn't even a little fire anymore. It was this huge, frick-frackin' bonfire, and he's throwing gasoline on it by the gallon because what he did was he hires 3 black singers, a young girl who's 19 years old, who couldn't come close to what my sister and I did. He doesn't even take us off the second album. He adds a backing vocal track that you can't even hear and says, well, this is the real people. These are the real people who sang. So he dupes the public one more time by releasing the real Milli Vanilli, Moment of Truth. And again, my sisters and my name are all over this second album. Everywhere you look, and in places where it should have been and it wasn't there. There's 2 songs where our voices are dominant and there's not even a vocal track from the other girl that he hired. So it's just duped all over again. They're being duped all over again.
But why
so then let's fast.
Okay, go on.
Well, but the record didn't sell 100,000 copies, as opposed to the last one, which sold 44 million.
Well, ask Peter Frampton how that works.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you're going to, you got to be humble. If you're going to dupe people and con them out of the price of a CD, they were already burning our CDs in the street, which was absolutely ridiculous, and it shouldn't have been allowed. They were getting bulldozers and rolling them over, the records and the CDs, and Frank Farian is duping them again. Instead of saying, this is the group, Brad, John, Jodie, and Linda. Let's get back out there. Let's have the boys dance with the group. I couldn't even begin to imagine the
so
success.
Obvious. People still like the music, so just have
people love the music.
I mean, I just don't get
people
why
love
you
the
would
music.
screw that up. Yeah.
You wanted to know how I met Lenny. I've never met him. The other day, he posted something. He said, blame it on the rain. And he made a comment about blame it on the rain, and I commented back, and he said, hey, is this really somebody who had something to do with the group? Because I own @Milli Vanilli on Twitter.
Okay.
And I said, yes, I'm Jodie Rocco, and I'm one of the original singers. So that's how I met him. And he says, I know this really great guy did an interview, and I think you guys would be really good. So thank you to Lenny for hooking us up.
Well, I mean,
I'm
nothing
hoping
surprises. Look, he was hanging out with Charlie Sheen. There's nothing. In fact, by the way, you made me think of Lenny story. We're talking about Lenny Dykstra, by the way, former Met in Philly.
Right.
That relates here because in his book, which came out last year, he House of Nails, and he talks about how the Mets had a player who set a record. This was in the late 80s, after they had been at their best. I guess maybe it was 88 at that point. A guy named Greg Jeffries, who was a big. They were building the team around him, even though they said, what did Lenny say? He was allergic to leather, and he couldn't hit for power. But he had a certain aura, or he had an attitude when he came in as a rookie. And it just reminded me of what you just said about Rob and Bev. This might be the first time anyone ever talks about them in terms of Greg Jeffries, though I guess it would have been right around the same time in the late 80s. And just no one has alienated he may have been the most hated person on the team the fastest in history, thinking he had actually done something in the major leagues. And this was not a bad team. This was the best team over the last 5-6 years, even though they
exactly. Where's the humbleness? If Frank would have said to me, because he threatened me, he threatened my sister when we did the second album. He gave the boys $1 and $2 and $3 million bonuses. My sister and I got platinum records, snuck out of the back door of Arista. We got a 2,000 mark, not dollar, bonus check for Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You. It sold 7 million singles in the U.S. alone. So I get in the studio and he gives me a check, which was by no means a small check. It was about $85,000. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. This is an insult to my talent and my sister's talent. We've been here 6 weeks. We have worked 5, 6, 7, 8 hours singing at the epitome of what it is that you do, which is perfection. Okay? And you give me a check for $85,000, the boys got a couple of million. And I tore up the check and I said, when you want to talk, let me know. And I gave it back to him and he got irate. He said, how dare you? I could have had any singer from England. I said, yeah, you could have, but you didn't. Right. You hired 2 white girls from Cleveland. You flew me from Las Vegas. Okay? If you could get any black singer from the UK, go and get it. Right. Well, here's the problem. Clive Davis said, don't change the sound. I don't want you changing the sound. Do not change one thing. Leave the girls alone. Leave the boys alone. I don't want one thing to change.
Out of 3 number 1 songs, and you said Girl, You Know It's True went to number 2. And I looked at
I think it went to number 2. Yeah, it was not a number 1 song.
I mean, why do you mess with that formula, especially when no one had even heard of them before?
Why would you change a winning team is my question.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you go back? The greatest performers in history. If you look at Tony Bennett, he's got the same orchestral director, he's got the same keyboard player. Unless they die, he doesn't get rid of them. There's a reason for that.
What was wrong with Frank? I mean, something must have been. Was it drugs? I mean, was something going on there?
Frank wanted to be in control. Frank's a control guy. I mean, the fact that the boys did something without him calling the shots, that was enough to send him over the edge.
Just that, it was that much of a
control. Oh, without question, he was not in control. When I tore up the check and threw it at him, he ran after me out of the room. I walked away. Don't you walk away from me. I can, blah, blah. And he was going on and on. He's yelling at the top of his lungs. Linda's hiding in the room. And I turned around and I looked at him. I said, Frank, when I'm done here, I go home and I buy myself a car. You have to call Clive Davis and explain why you burned the master tapes, because he was threatening to burn the master tapes. I'm going to burn the master tapes. I'm going to do this. I said, go ahead. I go home, buy myself a car. Maybe I'll buy my husband one. Maybe I'll buy my parents a house. Okay? Right. You have to call Clive Davis and answer to him and say, yeah, this is why I burned the master tapes. But don't get in my face.
But
needless to say, by the end of business that day, I did have another check.
What did happen between him and Clive Davis? I mean, how did Clive Davis not bring him behind the woodshed and
one of the main things is that Frank was not based in the U.S. He was based in Germany. When this hit the fan and my sister and I hired the class action law firm, not to get the money from the class action stuff, that was crap. I didn't want that. I wanted royalties. In Germany, if you want to fight for royalties or if you want to fight for money, let me put it this way, in order to do that, you would have to put, like, if somebody poured hot coffee on me and I go for $3 million or $5 million to sue McDonald's, I'd have to put $22.5 million up into an escrow account that only the courts have access to. Mm-hmm. So you don't find these frivolous lawsuits. So if I wanted to sue or I wanted a part of the royalties, say $25 million, which is what I was going for, I would have to put 15.75 into an escrow account that only the court has access to. If I had $15.75 million, would I need to have, would I have to worry about suing Milli Vanilli to get, royalties? So that didn't work. It was very hard. So I'm assuming that Clive Davis also had legal issues like that. I'm pretty sure that all those documents that were signed, plus you have to keep in mind, Clive Davis is not going to walk around with egg on his face. He's not going to say, yeah, I knew it and I just did nothing about it. Mm-hmm. So he basically did the smart thing. He sat back.
Egos can ruin a good thing. My God. By the way, do you have 8 more minutes? Then I'm just going to cancel my other guests for today. Oh
my God, I'm so sorry. I was only supposed to be on here for 30 minutes.
No, this is great. We roll with it. It's great. It's not a big news day anyway. So.
What? No, it's not. It surely isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. By the way, we have similar politics. I saw your Twitter.
Yes,
feed.
we do. I volunteered for Mr. Trump's campain, so
yeah. Let's talk about that. I mean, if I've wrapped up the Milli Vanilli story, let's just hear a little bit more about you and the last 25 years since then, and who you are, what you do. I mean, you're a damn good guest. I'll tell you that.
Well, the one thing that I really, I was in radio for many years. I was the voice of Highway Radio, and I had 2 shows, 2 nightlife shows, and 2 entertainment shows. So
where were you doing
I interviewed a lot of. Here in Vegas, they built a studio for me here. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Highway Radio, in the place where I worked, a studio was built for me so that I could have my guests come in, and these were people that are on the strip, entertainers. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years. As I previously said, I was part of nightclubs.com, which was acquired by What's On Magazine and Highway Radio. So I was director of marketing, PR, and social media for all that. And then I was, like I said, the voice of Highway Radio for many years, 5 or 6 years, up until about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And do you still
Highway Radio was. I still sing. I don't sing in the capacity where I'm on stage in front of 50,000 people anymore. Not that I would count that out. Right. But I had 2 children in between. I say children; they're 21 and 24. Today, my 2 daughters, and so I did that in between, and just life.
And how do you like Las Vegas? You're from the Midwest, you said?
Well, I was born in Cleveland. I never lived there. I have a lot of family there. In fact, I was watching the game there last night with the Cavs and the Warriors, and everybody's asking me, so, who's your pick? I lived in the Bay Area 12 years. That's where I go to visit my kids, and that's where they live. So
gotcha.
I was kind of in a conundrum. But then again, I'm a Cleveland girl, and, I was watching the way they were playing, and I'm kind of a Warriors girl when I was watching how they were playing, and so, yeah, Vegas is never a good hair day in the summer for me. It's too hot.
Oh, I thought it's the humidity that's the problem, not the heat.
No humidity here. We live in the desert. This is a desert. There's no humidity here.
Yeah, I know. Let me ask you about music and how it's changed. What do you think of the developments in popular music, I guess, over the last 25, 30 years since you were right in the middle?
You mean like auto-tune?
Auto-tune,
well, I look at auto-tune.
Frustrating from Milli Vanilli's standpoint.
Well, you see these lip sync battles and you see all this stuff that's very, very popular and very famous today. But where did this start? Hello, let me raise my hand. It started because Milli Vanilli had this scandal. But here's the thing. They weren't lip syncing to their own voices. They were lip syncing to other voices. So when I hear people saying, yeah, I look at Britney Spears and her show, and a lot of her music, a lot of her show is on tape. Well, you're going to see a show. You're not going to hear her sing. You're going to see a show.
True.
I believe that it should be on the ticket. It should say portions of the show are pre-recorded. I think it needs to be on there, and I think it should be on there for any show that you go to that is going to have pre-recorded parts. And what do you want to see? Do you want to see her, falling from the sky on a parachute, or do you want to hear her singing on key? I mean, come on. You have to be realistic in this, especially in Vegas. That's one thing. Then there's the auto-tune. If you hear some of these people sing, you hear them sing live, and you wonder, how in God's name did they do that in the studio? Well, this fabulous invention, auto-tune, you can do that live. In my day, it didn't work. If you didn't sing it right the first time, you kept singing it over and over and tracking over again until you got it right. And you're right below the note, or that's rock and roll, just leave it that way. It might be a little sharp or a little fat, but it's rock and roll, just leave it.
Yeah, or in Duran Duran's case, say, that's the trademark vocals.
Exactly.
I mean,
you hear these things
off key, yeah.
Exactly. But if you look at Mariah Carey today, she does not sing the way she did 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
We saw that on New Year's Day, on New Year's Eve.
Well, let me give you my 2 cents on New Year's Eve. My 2 cents on that is the playback started before her. So she didn't know where she was in the playback. One, she didn't do a sound check. Fire her whole crew. If the crew did not do a sound check on the most important day of the year, what were you thinking was going to happen? Because the music was on tape, not her voice. It was a half playback. So I felt for her that night because she didn't know where she was, if she was in a chorus, if she was in a bridge, if she was in a group, because you only hear the backing basic tracks, which could have been in 4 or 5 different places in the song. So it was probably set up for the sound check, and nobody ever put it back to the beginning. So I felt very bad
so
for
it really
her
wasn't
because
her
she
fault.
didn't know where she was.
I mean, her crew just screwed up, and that may have been the problem with doing a performance in Times Square on New Year's Eve in the middle of winter.
Well, not only that, she is a perfectionist. So if her crew was supposed to be doing a sound check and they never did it, that's already a problem because she couldn't hear in her earbud. She couldn't hear on stage. That's the reason you do a sound check.
And she was
get the levels down.
She's
the one that took the heat. I did a whole show on that.
Interesting.
Because I did not believe that for a moment that it was her fault. And I mean, I did not believe for a moment that she should have been given all the guilt for that.
Interesting.
Was she a diva?
And she was actually,
yes.
So you actually have to admire the fact that she didn't blame it on someone else. She just prevented them from being embarrassed. And she took the heat herself.
Pretty much.
It became a joke at the beginning of the year when it was not at all her fault.
Nope.
Wow.
That's how I see it anyway. That's how I see it because I think that there were a lot of people, there probably were people that were let go.
I'm sure. Jodie, I only have like a minute left. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Your favorite, we think of Harry Chapin, Dean Newton, Mike and the Mechanics, Dan Fogelberg. What's your favorite Father's Day song?
My favorite Father's Day song? Well, I like the song Leader of the Band. The leader of the band is tired and his eyes are growing old because it tells you all about what the family did and how the father raised them. And every time I hear this song, it reminds me of my father. There's 6 kids in my family, and we all went our different directions. My parents allowed us to do that. So that would be I like that song. And
it sounds like it's a better relationship than, what's the Mike and the Mechanic one? So called The Living Years.
Well, The Living Years, actually, it's, he's just wanting his father to pay attention. And why didn't we talk then? So, but this song has that in there too. Where you move away and you kind of, Cats in the Cradle, same thing where, you kind of move away and it's not as drastic, but, all these men talking about their fathers and not having a relationship, that should be your first clue.
And the Wayne Newton one.
Wayne Newton.
Daddy, won't you walk?
Daddy, don't you walk so fast? Yeah.
Another good one. All right, it's been a real pleasure, Jodie. Wow, I did not expect to be when the week began. I did not expect to be talking for an entire show with Milli Vanilli's the real singer of Milli Vanilli. But this has been a pleasure. It was really great talking to you. I'm glad this came random as it may be.
I know. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Lenny, for this hookup.
And that is one guy you can never predict. That I'll just leave it at that.
No. I'm waiting for the Fox interview to come next.
Hey, who knows? I will try to process this really quickly, but you're my only guest today, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank
you, Jodie,
you
Rocco.
so much. I appreciate it, Adam. Okay, thank you.
So clearly, you never know what to expect here on Backlash on Shark Nation Radio. Well, sometimes you do. I tell you in advance. But that was a different direction. I hope you enjoyed it. Follow us on SoundCloud. Just put in soundcloud.com and then put in Shark Nation Radio. You'll get us. And check out our apps, which work perfectly fine on Apple and Android. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. Adam Taxin, you've been listening to Backlash on Shark Nation Radio.